After working my entire freshman season to become the starter, I was ready to take my game to the next level, and I had bigger goals of making it to the NFL. So not only was I striving for success to help my team this season, but I was also hoping I would get attention from other schools. I don't necessarily want to transfer anywhere, but if I can perform well enough while also getting an NIL payday, this could be the last season I take the field in a Wyoming jersey. My first game of the season was against number 9 Oregon though, so to prepare for that, I needed to have a good practice right beforehand, and I felt like I was unstoppable. However, going against the Ducks defense will be much harder than the Wyoming backups, and I hated when my coach would call these terrible halfback tosses. On top of that, I was running for my life because my guys were too scared to block the Oregon defensive ends, and it really hurts to watch this back on the big screen. Again, my goal throughout the year is to earn transfer offers, but it won't be easy, and during my recruitment as a 4-star, Missouri and Nebraska both wanted me, but I decided I'd rather play in college with my best friend Gio Saria at Wyoming, and earning offers back from them now would be very challenging to do. Luckily, I finished the first half finally getting us into a position to score, but after that moment, things just didn't go the way that they needed to, and even after I got the ball out, the Oregon defensive line was just torturing me. It was clear this group of guys would never get me any national attention, but I wasn't too deserving of it either, as I lost the ball after getting railed on the sack, and Oregon took that back to the crib while I struggled to get up, so I never saw the field again, and I actually made my head coach so mad that if I didn't have a good practice, I would lose my starting job at Wyoming. Let's just say that I took about every check down that I could, and I was very particular about the plays where I'd try to throw for 15 yards, but it was going well until once again left tackle Caden Barnett decided he didn't feel like blocking, and my new tight end John Gillenborg, who I thought I could trust, not only slipped on this route but also dropped the pass, so before I knew it I was back to being the backup. But against FAU, sophomore Evan Savora failed to get us the win, so I knew with a decent performance in practice I'd have the starting spot back immediately, but Gio Saria dropped this ball which turned into an interception, and I'm not gonna lie, the longer I played with this offense, the more I regretted my decision to attend college at Wyoming, but there was a chance that I was actually the problem because Evan Savoba played very well against number 21 Michigan State and almost pulled off the unexpected upset, so I had a lot of work to do if I wanted to earn my starting job back, and I was ready to put it in. To get any transfer offers to escape Wyoming though, I would need to be on the field in the first place, and let's just say that after watching the Spartans game from the sidelines, I was ready. With this pass to senior wide receiver Ayir Asante, I earned enough of Craig Bohl's trust back, and I got what I wanted. I had a chance to earn the starting spot again this week in practice, and if I had to run for every yard, I'd do whatever it took, because when I tried to stand in the pocket, my offensive line didn't give me any time, so I took matters into my own hands, and this elusiveness showed off the talent I secretly had. I was throwing a very hard ball today, but whenever I took my checkdowns, I limited the power that I put on the football for obvious reasons. It seemed like I was about to get on Craig Bohl's good side for the first time in weeks, and this pass over the middle of the field to senior Devin Bodie is what officially sealed the deal, making me number 1 on the depth chart, and that was just in time for conference play where I went in upgrading a lot. My throwing stats got way better, and all of a sudden I was an 87 overall. This was my first game back as the starting quarterback, and it was on the road at Hawaii, but I prepared a lot beforehand and it showed on our first drive. However, on our next one, I made a crucial mistake when I failed to leave the pocket because I ended up getting hurt on that play, and I wasn't able to get back onto the field until a bit into the second quarter, but my confidence wasn't ruined from my failed rollout on the last drive. With how my offensive line played, I knew I had to do it, and it paid off tremendously, but by midway through the third quarter, it was a 4-point game, and once again, I was leading us down the field as I finished it off with an easy dump off to the slant route, and all I was hoping was we could hang on to our lead, but with a few minutes remaining, I made the mistake of not throwing it away, and then on the next play, I might have had somebody open, but I sailed the pass out of bounds, and I couldn't believe I was able to pick up the 3rd and 16 to Ayir Asante, which was massive, but that still wasn't enough to seal the deal. On our next third down, I tried my hardest to help us convert, but I failed, and then Craig Bohl forced me to go for it on 4th and 6, but I knew that I immediately lost all of his trust with this interception, and luckily my defense held on so we would win. I thought I put up pretty solid stats, but once again I got benched, and that backfired for us because we would lose to Colorado State by 17 points. At this point, I wanted to transfer out of Wyoming so badly, but if I was going to do that, I'd need to get some other schools interested in me first, and I was going to lose my mind if another practice was rainy with drop passes. It wasn't easy, but on the final rep of practice, I managed to escape the pocket before it collapsed, and this run would give me just enough coach trust to get where I had to be. I couldn't believe I was competing for the starting job again, but I needed to secure it, and I wish the other colleges I wanted to transfer to could see this practice tape because it would show how much I could endure while still turning nothing into something. It still doesn't make any sense why I lost the starting spot after winning, but Craig Bohl doesn't trust me, and everything I did in this quarterback battle was intended to get on his good side. Since my offensive line was rough, it took me a while to get it going, but I was performing well under immense pressure, and my tight end, John Glyenborg, who was the new starter, was my top top target. With a few reps left, I needed one more big play, and this wasn't supposed to be my read, but since the running back got laid out, I had to take it, and I was QB1 for the third time, but to win the conference, I had some work to do. On my first drive, my coach didn't let me throw the ball once, but he did let me run it with the option, and you best believe that I took full advantage of that one opportunity. It wouldn't matter though, because just like every other week, free rushers would get in on me, and I was becoming so frustrated playing at Wyoming, but I made that decision to come here. We needed to beat San Jose State, and I wasn't able to do very much myself, but at least the run was working against the Spartans, and I wish our defense could get a stop because we fell back down 3 quickly. I wanted to play with Gio Saria so bad, but he kept dropping passes, so I had to spread the love to other guys on the team since he wasn't reliable anymore, and that made a big difference as we actually started flying down the field with big gain after big gain. I even finished off the first half in the perfect way, but of course, by the time I saw the field again, we were still trailing the Spartans, so I had to lead us once again, and surely my starting spot was secure at this point. I was 14 for 17 on the day, and then I put my life on the line for another score, so you know that something had to go wrong. Not only would I panic and lose this football, but it would also get picked up, and there was nobody near the defensive end to stop him from taking it to the house, so I thought I was starting to show out, but then I fell apart, and going into the fourth, we were still down by 3, where I then went on to fumble for the second time, but in this situation, it also resulted in us taking a safety. I don't know how we were still in this game with 4 minutes remaining, but on 3rd and 3, my coach called a halfback draw, and let's just say that when we needed to pick it up on 4th down, I sold, but my defense miraculously got a stop, so somehow this one was still not over for us, and with a minute and a half left, I decided to take things into my own hands. I was not a runner coming into college, but the more I did it, the faster and more confident I became, and San Jose State was unfortunately able to send it to overtime. But before we see how that unfolds, a word from today's video sponsor, Prize Picks. I've been having a pretty good season so far on there, and if you don't know what Prize Picks is, you simply pick higher or lower on player projections. For example, this week I think both Xavier Weaver and Jalen McMillan will go for higher, and the more players you add, the bigger the multiplier will be, but I'm sticking with these two and putting in 25 to hopefully win 75. I can also get you a deposit match up to $100 on Prize Picks, so use promo code BOARD and they'll match it up to $100, assuming you reside in one of the 31 states they're available in. Now we'll see how overtime goes, and I'm nervous, but I wasted no time slinging it 25 yards to the end zone to wide receiver Jalen Sargent, and then my defense returned to their first half form where they couldn't manage to get a single stop. All I could do was watch, knowing that I wasn't getting thrown back out there, and for the second time in a row, I hooked up with Jalen Sargent for 6 on our first play, but the drive after that, I remembered why I couldn't trust Gio Saria, and it got bad as even when I tried to fit it into my tight end, he wasn't able to handle the heat, and that left me no choice but to try and force it on 4th and 10 where I turned it over again. San Jose State would ruin any hopes we had of winning the conference, and my 5 turnovers canceled out the 6 touchdown game, so I was about to be the third stringer if practice didn't go well, and I had to increase my accuracy again. I managed to go from the starter to a potential third string quarterback in 1 week, but I wasn't willing to let my career end this way, and even though my guys up front clearly didn't want to see me succeed, I was going to become QB1 again, get some transfer offers, and get out of Wyoming. At this point, it might seem like that would take a miracle, but I have to make it work because I can't do another season of teammates that can't hold on to the football. By the end of the day, Craig Bull let me stay as just the backup, but following our bye week, my next practice in the rain had to be special, and I opened it up by letting the ball slip out of my hands. All I wanted to do was have some transfer offers out of here, but I had to become a starter consistently for that, and I don't know how I kept my head on straight for this entire season, but it showed how mentally tough I was. I was finding ways to make my lack of help work, and I just needed some other college coaches to somehow notice it. Due to how well I was playing, I was very close to earning another position battle, but with a few reps remaining, I needed one more catch, and I swear this downpour was going to drive me insane. In the end, I clutched up by finding all-reliable John Glyenborg, and I was ready to compete again because I was just sick of holding the kicker's balls. It was clear that Evan Savoba wasn't the answer, so I don't know why I kept getting benched, but I had to beat him out for the starting job for like the 5th time in a position battle, and it was frustrating because stuff like this always manages to happen. I was not willing to sit on the bench for another week though, and on one of the final reps, I took matters into my own hands, running for just enough to win the battle, and I never want to go through that again. We had no chance of winning the Mountain West, so in these last 5 games, my only goal was to see how many colleges would let me transfer into play for them, and I was willing to put my body on the line to get out of Wyoming. I was actually enjoying that Craig Bull was letting me run the option every so often, and on 3rd and 21, instead of forcing a deep throw down the field, I stayed true to pounding the rock, and I was fighting hard. Apparently, I should have continued to do that because when I tried to thread the needle, I failed, and then when I tried to send it on a deep ball, I just couldn't get enough under it, and thankfully, it was dropped, but I wasn't moving after the play, and by the time that I finally got back onto the field, we were down by 10 until I threw for this touchdown. We needed an onside kick to bail us out, but that didn't happen. And shockingly, with 32 seconds remaining, the defense got us the ball back. So I went out there with the chance of helping us force overtime, and after I completed this 38-yard pass that got us inside the red zone, we could score 6, but I limped off the field again, and it was so hard to watch. But the final play of the game wasn't able to reach the end zone, so we lost again. And I still had 0 other schools interested in me because my season stats were pretty atrocious. I had to have a massive game against Troy, so of course it started like this, and I swear I'll never get to leave this team because nobody knows how to catch. Approaching halftime, we still didn't have a single point on the board, but I knew that I needed to do something, and thank goodness I was able to thread the needle with this ball to my tight end to finish the half. I said I needed to prove myself to get out of Wyoming, and if plays like this weren't enough to do that, I don't know what would, because I gave it my all, and whenever I took sacks, there really wasn't much I could do. Head coach Craig Bohl surprisingly let me attempt a long 4th and 20, so I knew I couldn't disappoint, and I sure didn't, but I knew that I needed to throw for more touchdowns to garner any attention, and all of my receivers were making it so much harder for me to do so. At this point, I felt like I had no other option here but to immediately try and pick it up myself with my legs, and it's hard to believe I could do all this with 74 speed, but my team still lost the game, and I couldn't believe it, but I did have some interest. It came from Northern Colorado, an FCS school, and I'd never transfer there because they're even worse, but it gave me motivation to keep working hard, and I was becoming an even better quarterback. I had 3 games left to earn a good transfer offer from other colleges, and I had a great opportunity today. If we could upset 7-2 Boise State, that could shake a lot of things up, and we were already up by 7, so it was crucial that we finished this drive off, and that's when I completely sold. Since our kicker missed the field goal, we still only had 7 approaching halftime, but then I sent up a prayer to Gio Saria, and of course, he couldn't hold on. I don't know what happened to him since high school because his hands used to be like glue, but he would make up for it, and to end the first half, the game finally slowed down in my head, and I was picking apart Boise State's defense, but by the third quarter, my accuracy was off again, and this could have potentially gone for an extremely long touchdown. We found ourselves down by 1, and this had to be one of the worst 3rd and 11 play calls from Craig Bohl himself, but my defense held it down though, so we got it back, and if you ever wanted to see how determined I was, I think the effort on this play really shows it. We needed a drive to go our way again, and it seemed like everything was going smoothly on this one, but we all know that's a recipe for disaster. I didn't even have a chance to get this ball out before getting pounded and fumbling it away, which Boise State recovered, but fortunately, when we needed a stop, the defense actually clutched up, so with 1 minute and 23 seconds left, I was out there with an opportunity, but let's just say that my team didn't seem to be ready for the moment as I had to deal with back-to-back drops. Here on 3rd down, I should have taken the drag, but I went for the 1st down instead, and this was just another heartbreaker, but I had a couple of touchdowns, and the following week, this game would change the entire trajectory of my college career. I was facing off against 2-8 Air Force, so this was a perfect chance to finally do well, and Jalen Sargent continued to be one of the guys I could rely on. I needed to throw for a lot more touchdowns to garner any attention though, and if they continue to leave the seam open, I'd take it every time. Up to this point, I was already 11 for 16 for 168 yards, but then I saw a streaking Ayir Asante for a 52-yard touchdown, and the day just kept getting better. This was the first time this season things seemed to go perfectly, and Gio Saria ended the first half finally scoring again, so since I was dominating after I threw for my 5th touchdown, I got pulled, but this stat line definitely put the nation on notice, and I had 1 remaining game to earn transfer offers if I wanted to leave Wyoming. I was so proud of my offensive line on this play because they gave me enough time to find Gio Saria for a 31-yard touchdown, and it felt great to finally play the weaker opponents on our schedule. I was able to do so much more, and highlights like this would be big for me. It was never going to be another perfect performance as this 4th and 6 went atrociously, but because I finally had the time to let the routes develop, I was doing way better, and the only thing still driving me crazy is I don't think anybody taught these guys how to catch. Eventually, Devin Bodie would figure it out as he helped us get down the field here, and I finished the drive off by finding him in the back of the end zone for 6. With a couple minutes remaining, it seemed like we were going to win our 2nd straight as long as we held on to our 3-point lead, and trust me, I still had a lot of frustrating moments during that process, but at least I eventually got another passing touchdown, and this knee would end the game where I threw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. It might have been a pretty rough sophomore year, but I had around 27 total touchdowns, and since I didn't even play the entire season, I was only able to get some interest from these 4 football programs. I felt like I had no choice but to transfer, and I'll let you all know what I'm doing next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.